Welcome to the Lifelong Rivals Sports Podcast. I'm Zach Kaufman here with Ryan D'Amico.
What's up, man? How are you?
Feeling amazing. Told you earlier, got a run in right before this, so I'm hyped up and ready to go.
You are hyped up. Yeah, that's what you said when we connected our call. You said you just came in from a run and it's humid where you are, and so yeah, you got the endorphins flowing, so you're all fired up, but that's a good thing. I mean, you want to be fired up when you're doing a podcast or you're doing anything like this. That's people are going to listen to. You just don't want to sit there and talk like this and have people not care about what you're talking about, because you need to have that excitement, and I think that's what we both bring to the show. So. It was an exciting week in the NFL, exciting week in college football, and I am looking forward to breaking it all down with you, my man.
Yep, I'm excited. I'm hyped up. Like I said, I'm ready to go. So start us off with some college football.
Yeah, college football last week. Look, I'll be honest. College football last weekend for me was terrible. Just because obviously Michigan loses. Michigan just played one of the worst games I'd seen in some time. At home, they lose 14-10. They fall behind 14-3 and can't end up coming back. I mean, it's a torrential downpour for the last quarter and a half, and that just made it all but impossible to come back. And there's just a lot of bad things in that game between play calling and they had 5 turnovers and penalties. There was a touchdown taken off the board because of a penalty. There was a fumble in the red zone that takes points off the board. I mean, they just did a lot of things to basically hand that game to Michigan State, because Michigan State, up until the last drive for Michigan State, they didn't have a first down in the second half. So Michigan's defense, which is a championship defense, man, they're lights out. Is going to keep them in games and until this offense can kind of get some traction. And I don't know when and if that's going to happen, because in the beginning of the year, I was a little patient with it. And I was like, all right, it's a lot of new guys. They have to gel. They got to sync, and it'll come along. But it just flat out hasn't come along. And I'm starting to kind of run out of patience here. And, they have Indiana this week coming up. And then in 2 weeks, they have to go to Penn State for a night game, which at this point right now looks like it could be a bad loss. Hope things change, but I'm not as optimistic about that game as I was earlier in the year. So tough sledding right now for Michigan. Look, it's only one loss. They still have all their goals in front of them, so it's not like their season is over by any means. But they obviously need to play better offensively, because if they want to get to where they want to go, that offense and that offensive performance isn't going to get it done. So they go down. Michigan State climbs into the rankings. They're off to a good start this year after only winning 3 games last year. So credit Mark D'Antonio and Michigan State for bouncing back. The next big upset, which is a much bigger upset than Michigan State knocking off Michigan, was a game I actually watched a decent amount of and watched predominantly in the second half when the comeback started, which was Iowa State, the Cyclones. As this was happening too, Zach, do you remember that song back in high school? She move her body like a cyclone. Do you remember that song?
I definitely do. I want to say Baby Bash on that.
Yes, it's Baby Bash. Dude, I was literally singing that song like the whole time. Every time they'd score, I would start singing that because I was fired up. Because at the time, I wanted Oklahoma to lose, thinking if Michigan won, they would jump up a spot. But, so, Oklahoma, they squander a big lead. They let Iowa State come back. They lose 38-31 at home, too. And Iowa State had a backup quarterback for this game, who was at one point a third-string quarterback on the roster. Their starting quarterback goes out with it's like a personal reason, something like that. He left the team, and he was actually a pretty decent player. And then you get Kyle Kemp come in and throws 343 passing yards and 3 touchdowns. And Zach, you're a big defensive back guy and a big wide receiver guy. You got to watch wide receiver for Iowa State. One of the better wide receivers in the country, Allen Lazard, is fantastic. I remember him last year, and I was interested to see him coming into this year, how he would perform. He had 3 receptions, 69 yards, and the go-ahead touchdown with about 2.5 minutes to go in that game. So a guy to keep your eye on, Zach. Probably going to come out this year and probably be a decent draft pick. I would imagine probably in the first 3 rounds, I would say. Possibly even the top 2. So he's a good receiver. So, yeah, Oklahoma falls. Look, Oklahoma, though, this is kind of what their MO has been. They lose a game like this every year. Bob Stoops is gone. Same old story. Oklahoma, they fall at home. I think they were like a 32-point favorite, 33-point favorite. Big underdog win there by Iowa State. So Oklahoma goes down. Like I said, Michigan goes down. Other than that, pretty kind of chalk weekend. A lot of favorites won. No other big upsets. These, I believe, Michigan State was a game I told people to watch. I forget the other one that I said, and then the last one I told people to watch was the Miami-Florida State game, which really lived up to the hype, Zach. I don't know if you caught any highlights of that, but it was a wild game. The first half, Zach, was one of the more boring games I've ever watched. Like, neither offense could get on track. It was 3-0 Florida State at halftime. It was pretty pathetic. I'll be honest with you. It was a pretty disgusting display of football. And then in the second half, that's when we really saw some scoring and some things take off. Predominantly in the last minute and a half, when Florida State appeared to score the game-winning go-ahead touchdown with 1:24 left, and was going to knock off their bitter rival Miami at home. Hurricanes had other ideas, though. They drove 75 yards, 9 plays. Malik Rozier throws a 23-yard touchdown pass to Darrell Langham with 6 seconds left. I was actually watching it live, and a pass that I actually even said out loud, I thought that was going to be intercepted. And the wide receiver made a great adjustment on the ball, brought it in, got in college only 1 foot down, got 1 foot down and scored. And they went to review, and it stood. So Miami escaped with a 24-20 win. Lose their best player, though, in the process, and running back Mark Walton. He had ankle surgery. He's gone for the foreseeable future, possibly the entire year. That's going to hurt Miami going forward as they get into and deeper into the season and trying to vie for a ACC championship. They have Virginia Tech still on their schedule. And they don't have a gimmick this weekend either. They have the Georgia Tech Yellow Jackets, who that triple option gives a lot of teams fits. So I'm interested to see how Miami goes forward. Yeah, man, like I said, other than that, it was pretty chalky. Favorites kind of dominated. And other than those 2 upsets I talked about, that was pretty much it. UGA, Georgia, they continue to roll. A team that I have said for the now few weeks that I really like them and really high on. They just kind of keep churning. And then Penn State, the local squad, they go into Northwestern, and a game in the beginning of the year when the schedule came out, I thought this was a game that could possibly have been a trap game for Penn State, but Northwestern has just had a really bad down year. And a team in Northwestern a lot of people thought could make some noise in the Big Ten West this year, and simply has not. They didn't even put up a fight against Penn State, lost 31-7. So, yeah, man, as far as college, that's all I got for college. It was kind of a blasé weekend in college, but, like I said, 2 upsets in the top 25. So that's kind of what we like. Everyone likes upsets. I don't like upsets when it happens to my team, but
that makes sense.
But it is what it is, and we look forward to next week. As far as next week goes, some games to keep an eye out. Like I said, I think Georgia Tech Miami could be a potential a potential trap for Miami. They're coming off a big emotional road win against their biggest rival in Florida State. Now they got Georgia Tech on that triple option coming to town, which gives people fits. Keep an eye out for that. The Red River rivalry, Oklahoma and Texas. Oklahoma travels to Texas. Oklahoma coming off a loss. I expect them to bounce back here against Texas, but rivalry game, it's hard to know what to expect in this situation. And then, other than that, there's not really another game that I see and look at that I'm just like, oh, I have to watch that. Oregon Stanford, a late start, 11 o'clock, maybe one that I have some interest in. But there's actually not, which is, I don't remember the last time this has happened. It's happened sparingly. There's actually not a matchup of ranked teams this week. So, which is unfortunate. I think there was only one last week, which was the West Virginia TCU game, which TCU pulled away in the end. But yeah, no such this week. And that's all I got for college, man. We'll transition to the NFL. And you got anything to add for college? Any players or teams that stood out to you or anything like that? Or
one of the things I did a little looking into since last week, we talked a little bit about some of Sam Darnold's struggles this year, who was thought for a long time to be easily the number one overall pick. Sure. And as we continue to see, it looks like there's going to be a lot of quarterback needy teams towards the top of the draft. And Darnold's still there at the top of the quarterbacks here. They're just like always, there's a couple defensive players up there towards the top. But there's still 5 quarterbacks currently projected as potentially first-round picks this year. So Darnold leads them off. Second is Mason Rudolph from Oklahoma State. Third one's Josh Rosen, who's still up there. We talked about him going into the season. He hasn't really lost that spot that a lot of people think he can be a quality NFL quarterback. And then from that point, Luke Falk and Lamar Jackson are also projected to be top quarterbacks. So none of them have overtaken Sam Darnold at all at this point.
They won't. Yeah.
Yeah. I'd be very surprised at that. So it's expected he'll still be right up there at the top. The one thing I did want to mention at some point, I do want to check out this Oklahoma State team. I know they've got Mason Rudolph, the quarterback, that's supposed to be a top pick. James Washington, I've seen right around the top 10 at the wide receiver position, that he should be an exciting top pick as well. So that's a team I haven't been able to watch yet, but that's a combination that will definitely be moving on in some form to the pros to definitely keep an eye on these coming weeks, even if it might not be a good matchup, anything like that, just to see them play, see that skill set on display.
Yeah, and another team, Zach, I want you to check out is Washington State and Luke Falk, who you just mentioned there. Luke Falk's a guy that I've been watching for, this is the 3rd year now. I remember 2 years ago when he took over the starting job up there in Pullman, and they're a fun team to watch. They've since started to run the ball a little bit more, but when he first was there 3 years ago, and then last year, they threw the ball seamlessly like 85% of the time. They seemed to run the ball maybe 12 times a game. It was crazy. They've obviously implemented that more, and I think having more success on the field because of it. But Luke Falk, man, this kid can really spin it, man. He's got a really high completion percentage. He's already thrown for 2,000 yards, 19 touchdowns, and 2 interceptions. He's just kind of a natural quarterback. The kid can really spin it. I like Luke Falk. That's a guy I kind of want you to watch at least once this year. He's definitely someone you need to put on the list and check out, because he's going to get drafted, and he's a guy that I always pick one or two guys in college that I want to follow and see how they do transitioning into the NFL. He's one of them for me this year that I'm going to follow pretty closely once he gets drafted and who his team is.
And I really like that recommendation, because out of those 5, he's the one I know the least about. I haven't really got a chance to watch him. A couple of the other guys were a lot more hyped going into this season, so I had a chance over the summer to look at some of what they've been doing, some of the things that pro teams are already looking at for them to provide when they get to the NFL. So he's definitely on the bottom of that list of who I knew before, but seeing his name ahead of someone like Lamar Jackson on some of the draft boards that I've seen, definitely he's been standing out, and I'd like to take a look at that as well as soon as I get a chance here to watch this Washington State team play.
Yeah, absolutely. They usually play pretty late, Zach, 10, 11 o'clock. So if it's a Saturday night and you don't got anything going on that late, just flip on. They're usually on like Fox or Fox Sports 1. So just flip it over and check them out. You'll definitely enjoy watching him play. He's just a natural pocket passing quarterback. He's not mobile at all. He's a statue back there, but he can really spin it. So check him out. So that's a good college breakdown, good college talk there, Zach.
Thank you so much for listening to the Lifelong Rivals Sports Podcast. We really appreciate it. We've changed some things up based on some of the feedback we've received, so we'd love to continue hearing your feedback. As we continue to build this platform with our podcast, it's very helpful to us if you can share it with the people you know that you think would be interested. We'd really appreciate it. Thank you so much, and have a great week.